Hi, it's Ben from My Cycling Coach. I hope you're well and that you're having a great day. So I wanted to do a video on the page today as I've been speaking to a few cyclists about fueling for their weekend training rides. Now, a lot of these cyclists have been explaining to me how they've really been struggling with their fueling and it's been having a detrimental effect on the quality of their weekend ride. They don't really know what to eat before they go out, the amount that they should be eating, but what they should also then be consuming when they are on the bike. And they've been finding because of this that their energy levels have been really dropping. They've been suffering with cramp, and they've actually found that their recovery in the days after the ride has really suffered. And through doing maybe a ride that they've done, for example, one cyclist was explaining to me they'd do a ride on Sunday, find they'd really struggle with the fueling, and then it would actually take them almost 3 or 4 days to recover from that ride before they could really get back to doing some decent riding. So I thought I'd do a video on the page today. You may find the same thing, maybe not quite sure on what you should be eating, the amount you should be eating, or the fueling during your rides. So I'm just going to break this down into 3 sections today with pre-ride fueling, during ride fueling, and post-ride fueling. So for pre-ride fueling, if you're doing a weekend ride, and let's say I'm just going to use a ride that might be 3 hours or more in length, you want to be aiming for complex carbohydrates to help fuel for this ride. So these are the more starchy based carbs, can include things like pasta, rice, wholemeal bread, potatoes, and other food sources that are similar. As I say, are referred to as the more starchy based carbohydrates, or the carbohydrates that are slower in release of energy. Now, you want to be having these about 1 to 3 hours before starting your ride, and the exact timing of where you fall within that 1 to 3 hours will be personal preference. So this is maybe something that does need to be tried and tested. Obviously, some people can digest foods a bit quicker, and if the ride is also, it will depend on the ride intensity. So if the ride is maybe going to be of a lower intensity, you probably will get away with eating a bit closer to the ride. If the ride is going to be of a higher intensity, you may want to leave a bit more of a gap between your pre-ride meal and then starting that training ride. In terms of amounts then, if the ride, as I say, we are using an example of a ride that's going to be 3 hours in length or more, you want to be aiming for around 3 grams of carbohydrate per kilo of body weight to fuel for that ride. This is going to give you a sufficient amount of energy. Really make sure that you have got enough carbohydrate stored and glycogen stored to be able to go and then perform that ride, maximize your performance on the ride and feel like you do have enough energy. So that's your pre-ride fueling. If you get that right, that's going to set you up. During ride fueling is then just as crucial. Just because you have taken on that 3 grams of carbohydrate per kilo of body weight, that is a decent amount of fuel, but it's not going to fuel you for the whole duration of that ride. So you really have got to dial in on your during ride fueling as well. Now, for during ride fueling, again with our example of the 3 hour ride, you want to be taking on around 60 to 80 grams of carbohydrate during a ride of this length. Again, personal preference, the amount of carbohydrate that you have taken on previously in your training ride, you do need to train the gut a little bit to be able to tolerate the higher amounts of carbohydrate. So if you haven't really done this before or played around with carbohydrate fueling during your ride, you don't want to go straight into trying to take on the 80 grams of carbohydrate. You probably want to start on maybe more 50 to 60 grams an hour, and then work your way up to this. But they are sort of a figure that you want to be aiming for on a ride of 3 hours or more in length, 60 to 80 grams. Again, the intensity of the ride will also influence that amount. So if you have got some maybe efforts planned in the ride, some big hill climbs, then again, you are going to be then working more anaerobically, maybe more in your threshold zone, taxing that anaerobic energy system, meaning you are going to need to fuel with more carbohydrate and maybe push up to that 80 grams an hour. These amounts can be achieved through different things. I've done a few videos in the past and I've given specific amounts on certain food sources or sports nutrition products that you can use to achieve these amounts. So that's 60 to 80 grams. They are things like energy bars, energy bakes, gels. A good carbohydrate mix in your bottle will also allow you to achieve those amounts. And of course, the cafe stop that we hope that we're going to be able to do very soon in the next coming weeks, with hopefully some of the COVID restrictions loosening and being able to get back to group rides. And as part of that, being able to stop at a cafe and just have a nice coffee and maybe a cake to refuel and have a bit of a rest whilst on your endurance ride. So that's during ride fueling. If you hit those targets, this is going to be a real game changer. Or if you're not hitting those targets already and you're not really taking on that much fuel in your ride, you may also be feeling like you are really struggling with energy and being able to maintain a decent intensity through your ride, something that you maybe really do want to look at because it's going to be a big game changer for you. Then going into post-ride fueling. So this is more when we then start to really help initiate that recovery process, which is just as key. And it is crucial that we do start to do this within 60 minutes of getting off the bike. So if, again, we take our example of 3 hours or more as part of a training ride, you really want to, within that first 60 minutes, trying to get in as much as 1.2 grams of carbohydrate per kilo of body weight in that first hour. Now, the type of carbohydrate here, you can maybe switch more to simple carbohydrates and more sugary-based carbs just to really get that energy in as quick as possible, replenish those muscle glycogen stores within that first 60 minutes, which is crucial for the recovery process. Also, 25 to 30 grams of good quality protein is also really going to help initiate that recovery process and support any damage that has been done to lean muscle tissue as part of your training ride. And again, hitting these amounts and those targets within that first hour is going to then help you in the days after the ride. If you're not hitting these amounts now, then this is probably why you are feeling you're feeling the legs maybe for 2, 3, even 4 days after the ride because you're not fueling with the right amount in that post-ride fueling. Hitting these amounts as well can also be really useful. You may also find if you don't take in those amounts after getting off the bike, after doing an endurance ride, you maybe leave it for an hour. The body then can sort of go into what we call maybe like a starvation mode. And you may then find that you just then start to eat everything within sight. And if you are trying to maybe lose a bit of weight, or you're doing your cycling to lose weight, or you're trying to lose weight for a specific event, or you just have a weight loss goal, then obviously this can be detrimental if you miss that sort of 1 hour window with your post-ride fueling and then the body does go into starvation mode. You start eating everything in sight, maybe at the weekend as well. We tend to do this a little bit more. Then this is obviously going to have a detrimental effect on your helping you achieve your weight loss goals as well. So that first hour after getting off the bike is really crucial. You may have seen on the page, if you do follow, we have just partnered with Fuel My Sport, our sports nutrition partner now, and they do have some fantastic post-ride recovery formulas available, which have been aligned with a lot of the amounts that I've mentioned there. So go and check it out. They have got a ultimate recovery bundle in place at the moment, which will give you 2 products to help with your post-ride fueling. Yeah, guys, just thought I'd do that one today. Speaking to a few cyclists about sort of fueling for the endurance rides at the weekend or just weekend rides. Thought I'd do this video today to help you. You may be finding the same things. As always, guys, if you found the video useful, please drop a like on the post. Feel free to follow, share, subscribe, and any comments, as always, would love to hear from you. Enjoy your riding and speak soon.